Service Alliance community. How y'all doing today? Alongside me, brother Doug. What is up?
Good morning, dude. Hey, listen, this is an exciting day, right? You got some fun news to share, right?
Yeah. New
Building, making, creating. It's a
Yeah.
fun thing. So looking forward to talking about it today.
Yeah, I'm loving it, man. It was a good day yesterday. New flooring specialist salesman started yesterday. It was super cool, and he jumped right in, man. We were busy from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night.
That's what I mean. Like when you interview and then you decide to hire someone in their first day, they've got the nervous energy. As a new employee, you're excited about just doing something that's going to impact the business, and you're just eager to chomp in. And you sometimes have to kind of rein them back a little bit. Just give me a little time here. I gotta, keep the business running while I show you how it goes. But the potential of what can be once you do all that legwork and you find somebody. It's kind of like dreaming, so it's a lot of fun. I look forward to hearing how it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited. He's kind of my replacement on the sales side of things. I'll do overflow, but he's going to handle majority of that because there's just not enough hours in the day. It's almost as if this topic was designed for the day.
Yeah, sounds like the D word.
Yeah, delegate to elevate.
That's right.
Man, I am excited about this topic. It's one that you and I both are pretty passionate about. So it is exciting to be able to bring this this morning, and especially on the heels of good stuff. So I took him to the warehouse, introduced him to everyone, and then we went out to a job site and standing there watching Matt work while he was installing floors, and Kobe and all them doing some interesting stuff. And then we went off to the radio station, did a little radio interview, and made his nickname stick for him. Project Pat. It now sticks.
I mean, it was a brave move on your part to bring a manicurist in to do a floor sales job, but let's see how that goes for you.
Let's see how that plays out for him, Cotton.
Just kidding. You never know.
Too funny. Hey, by the way, welcome back, Scott. Haven't seen you in forever, brother. Glad to see you back. Good to have you, and good to have you, Adam, Joe, and Jeremy. Always grateful for you tuning in.
Yep.
Gonna be a good day, right?
Of course it is. Like I said, your day is full already right now.
It is.
You've got a sidekick on your side, and it's going to be a good day for you. Same thing at Action. We've got some new people, and it's exciting to see if it's going to work or not. And we're giving people opportunity, so that's what's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that process started a while ago for you, and it's kind of exciting to see a couple of months removed, like how things are starting to either work or maybe need adjustment. Like that's the great thing. It's all about the fine tuning down the road. Like you put a plan out there, you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this, and you just the fine tune along the way.
So let me ask you something. Are you a guy in your imagination and in your preparedness when you create something like a process or a description for an employee? Do you imagine that it's going to be like 98% perfect, or do you like? For me, I love to see what's going to work and not work, and I love to make the adjustments. But what I do realize is that stresses people out, because the person who doesn't completely nail it and you have to correct them, they could feel bad. They could feel like they're letting you down. They could get frustrated or aggravated. So, I'm always there to encourage them to say, this is to be expected, right? This is, I think you shared before we started what you kind of coached your brand new employee on, right? That this is,
and not just him, all of them. Like I coach all of them in this way. I'm always open to feedback because one thing I've learned is I'm generally wrong.
Wow, just threw it out there.
Generally wrong. No, I mean, no, listen, the reality is I know that there's people that may have a better way. They may have experienced something differently than I have. And so my way isn't the hard way. And so to kind of address your first question, Yeah, when I was running the appliance store, man, if it wasn't perfect, I didn't send it.
Hmm.
And that led to a lot of inaction. And some, some of that is just personality icks, right?
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
taken some time to kind of work through that. And now I'll put it out. I don't care if it's 50% at this point. Put it
Right.
out. Listen, this is in flux. And this goes to your next point is that as I introduce the sales description and responsibility to the new guy, Project Pat, I said, listen, this is in flux. I know that this isn't perfect. It was some of the original. It was some from other flooring stores that are in the area. It was some from just crap that we've dealt with. And so it's, like some from HR people, like it's a hodgepodge of stuff. And it's an evolving document. That's why it says like we can make addendums and, like if there's feedback needed, give us feedback. Like,
Sure.
This is not a closed environment. And if you run a business that it's a closed environment and your team members can't give you feedback, you know
You're in
why you
trouble.
can't retain employees?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you've created a place where feedback is discouraged. So
It's going to be a problem. Sure.
yeah, I'm always open to it. It may seem that I don't receive it as well. But sometimes it takes me longer to process feedback. So
Yeah. That's
yeah.
interesting. Actually, question for Scott. But let me open us in prayer.
Yeah.
Lord God, we thank you for this day. We thank you that you are a God that can see all and know all, and that you're in control. Sometimes that confuses us, Lord, why you have us go through certain things or have to experience difficult times in our lives. But Lord, we trust in you and we believe in you and we love you. And we know that you have our best interest at heart and that you never abandon us or leave our side. And so, God, help us be great leaders. Help us inspire others. Help us bring hope to our customers, employees, our friends and neighbors, family, and especially our enemies. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Yeah, Scott. I've heard Scott on a couple like a podcast, a couple Zoom calls. Scott seems like he knows what he wants and he is in control, but he also seems like he's a guy that navigates his employees and gives them control. But if I saw him on the meter, I would lead towards it's Scott's way typically. But Scott, chime in, man. Give us a little slice of who you are. Does it have to be your way? What's the percentage that it has to be your way, Scott, with your employees as in regards to getting the job done? He's probably driving right now going.
These guys are calling me out. No, so delegate to elevate, right, man? We've kind of processed through that. You and Jay, when you started out, was what, like two of you, and then it's kind of evolved into a lot more than that. So you've worn a lot of hats along the way, and you've learned how to delegate that out. Let's start with a question. What's the easiest thing about delegating? What's the hardest thing about delegating is the follow-up question.
The easiest thing about delegating is that, well, it's easy. It really actually is if you get it on paper and you have the process in place. And for me, that's easy. For others, that might be a little more daunting, or you want your process to be perfect and, well documented, laminated, put in a binder. I think if you give them some instruction and you delegate it out, and then the trick is managing. This is the difficult part. If you're delegating out a bunch of things all at once, make sure that you as a leader have a system in place that you can have oversight. You can't delegate something and then weeks later come back to them and assume that it's going to be done well. Matter of fact, you're just being the big D at that moment. If you delegate something new to someone and you don't come alongside and coach and advise along the way. So you kind of almost have to be intentional with your Google Calendar, to say, set up a 20-minute meeting with this person who's now taken over billing and this person who's taken over reconciling. Just, set up a time to meet with them. So the hard part is you making sure you don't fail them.
How's your process been in that? Do you delegate a lot of stuff at one time, or have you learned that
Oh
like
my gosh,
maybe you should delegate like one set to one person at a time? Not just one task, but like one set of tasks to one person at a time? Or do you delegate to a bunch of different people and then have to figure it out?
I'll tell you something, Zach, though maybe this is normal and maybe this isn't, but my experience was service manager, where I was in charge of technicians, reporting to a general manager and working with an office manager. Right. So worked alongside with the office manager. And then one day I was made general manager. And so now I had to be the guy that knows everything about the office administrative side, the technician side, and the business side. And so for me, it was all about delegation because I didn't know 80% of those jobs. And so my first step was whatever task somebody had in the company, I made them write a procedure so that I could then look at it and understand it. So delegation I was baptized by delegation right out of the gate. And so for me, I've never felt like a control person that I had to do it my way. Very, very rare was that the case. And what I've found is that frustrates more of my team members, that I'm willing to let a dispatcher do it differently, a brand new dispatcher. To do it completely differently can really stress out the whole team, the rest of the call takers. And we have about 8 call takers and then, 16 technicians. So for me, it's trusting in the complete process of delegating is easy for me, but hard for my staff at times. What was Saul saying? Saul's
about praying mantises. I don't know, those Cubans, man.
Look how cute Saul is. He's trying to, because we've got nothing going on in the state of Connecticut. He's now checking our state insect out just to throw that up there to taunt me. Yeah, we got nothing, Saul. We've got nothing. We don't have Cubans or Cuban coffee. We've got nothing here in Connecticut.
I mean, it's Connecticut, so
it's Connecticut.
Just
that's right.
No, I love that, man. I love that. Like because I think that's the appropriate response, is that if you're doing the task, you should probably be writing what the task entails, like from start to finish. And that's one of the things that I've asked to be done. Like, hey, I don't care if it's just like word blurted out. I'll make it look pretty.
Yeah.
But I need you to write down like the steps, or type the steps, or video this. I don't care how you do it. Just document the steps in what you're doing so that we can then train and then elevate you eventually.
Right.
But if you don't do it, that's when you're going to see my angry face get on, right? Like if I'm asking you to help the team by, hey, what do you do in your process? How does this work? Like, help me understand, because maybe in that I can find something to help you do your job better. Or I can find someone to help you in your job because maybe you're doing too much, right? Like that's the reality of a small business. So Scott is responding to my question. I asked how he delegated at first. Just happened because they had too much work. He got lucky and found people that cared and made the right decision. And he let them do what they felt was right. And it's kind of processed out from there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, unless you're some sort of robot computer that can really micromanage everything, Scott's approach is the way to go. You just have to know what your fundamental expectations are, and they have to build their process on top of that. They can't change the dynamic or the mission or vision statement of your company. So like, if they didn't really care about getting all those customers scheduled in a reasonable period of time, then that might not line up with the values of Scott in the business. So, it's just a matter of having the foundation there, which is good. So now Jeremy, fun to think about Jeremy, who's basically a one-man shop right now, and literally in every sense. Will Jeremy be a delegator once he starts to grow his staff, or is he more the type that wants to have a hand in that, and have more control over it and lead people through his control? That'll be fun to see. Jeremy's a breed.
There's two ways that can go. And the danger of delegation is either delegating out too much. There's tasks that you should be retaining, and or delegating too little and holding on to tasks and micromanaging, like Doug said, the tasks that you shouldn't be holding on to. So that is the balancing act that, as leaders in a company, whether you're the owner, whether you are the manager, the operations manager, service manager, whatever of the company, it's always, I feel like it's always a balancing act that you have to figure out what is that level of like, okay, this is a task that I should be holding on to. And that leads to my next question. Doug, what was the first $5 task? I don't know if you've ever heard it phrased this way, but what was the first $5 task that you delegated out so you could start working on more $100 tasks?
Answering the phones. Loved answering the phones. If the phone didn't get picked up by the second ring, I was from that generation that the whole company is going to go out of business in the next 5 minutes. And it was tragic. I was just meeting with our rep from the phone company, SCS, that we use. And he said that the average time on hold that people are willing to wait today currently is 2.5 to 7 minutes, which blows my mind, because I'm from the Yellow Page era, and that you got 20 seconds, people are going to hang up and find someone else. But nowadays, with automation and AI on the phones, you're dealing with prompts, and you're getting used to being on the phone longer. So, but back in the day, I had to kind of not answer the phones. Otherwise, I would never get any work done.
That leads to an interesting point. Don't just let your phone go to voicemail. Have some prompts that people can follow through, or some type of hold. If you send them right to voicemail, they will call your competitor.
For sure.
That's been my experience in it anyway. Like, oh yeah, no, we already called someone. I'm calling you back 5 minutes later. Like, no, we already found someone else. So if you do fall in that 2 to 7 minutes where they're kind of going through the prompt, you're more likely to retain them, even if it is using an answering service or something like that, where they are on hold until they can be served properly. Just don't send them to voicemail.
To take a phone call and talk with the customer, and they start bringing up a specific compliance and a symptom, you're loaded. You already know. Oh, I know that machine. The good news is this. Oh, that's a great one. You got to keep that machine forever. Don't ever. You lose control of all of that when you delegate to someone in the office, maybe who has limited or no experience. They'll get it down the road, but it's going to take decades. And so you just have to be okay with that being a little bit different. Otherwise, if you're going to keep answering the phones, you're probably not going to grow your business, and you're not going to grow it well. So that's it. And how about even handling upset customers or customers with issues? That's a $15, because that's an important thing to fix, right? But that's a $15 task that I had to recognize that if I wanted to take a day off for a week, I can't have a day or a week of people going, well, my manager's not in and we'll have to get back to you. That's not anything I can help you with. Those are all terrible words to hear as a customer. And so delegating or teaching and then delegating customer issues, which is painful to listen and watch them do. And then when they hang up and sometimes they're crying, you talk them through and you say, hey, next time, try this or try that. Investing in those people to be able to delegate customer solution issues is wonderful, because now we have about 4 or 5 people in our company that can do it. So our customers don't have to wait a long time to be satisfied.
100 CS hours a week, 2.5 people to keep up. Yep. And I mean, I don't know his company, but I'm guessing he's at around 6 to 7 techs at that point. That's just knowing the normal math. That's roughly about where that should fall in.
Yep.
You're at 16, and obviously you have like whatever 8 people in the
250.
answering service. And so yeah, I mean, yeah, 6 trucks, spot on. So the math pretty much almost always works out. I
What a
mean,
geek. What a
I
geek.
know, I know, I know, I know, I know. I can't. It's the ADHD ick in
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
No, and again, like this, I say $5 tasks and $100 tasks and $15. It's like levels of things, right? Like it's not that if you're a CSR, your job is not important and it's only a $5 tasks. In my day, that's a $5 task. It like it doesn't serve the greater vision of the company for me to be answering the phone. Actually, it'll put the company out of business if I'm the one answering the phone because I don't. It's not my gifting. That was the first task that I passed off as well because nobody wants me answering the phone.
Right.
And then the upset customers, I found there's other people with a lot more empathy than me. I'm learning empathy, but there's people who have much more empathy than me.
Delegating tasks to someone that can do better. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. That's a great.
And they can separate the emotion of it, right? When it's your company or you're in charge of the company, like it's sometimes harder to separate that emotion. Like, you attacked my technician, you attacked my CSR, I hate you. Like it's so much easier to fall into that trap. Whereas if you have someone who's been delegated to that task, they can kind of separate themselves from the emotion of that easier. It's easier for them to take it less personally. I know you're the master of not taking it personal, but
I really enjoy the $5 task analogy because, and I'm sure you kind of meant this with the $5 task. So for you to do it as the owner at probably $50 an hour, you're doing a $5 an hour task, and it's just so I've had great leadership and tutoring from Jay, because that's what's great about me running the business and then him another 50 feet higher. We lost a tech in the middle of the summer in our sort of like remote area. And I was just like, oh my gosh, we're killing it. We're having great weeks. We're maxed out. The revenue's amazing. And now this guy quits. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go down there and do that area to get caught up. It's the summertime. We're never going to get caught up. I got caught up in the weeds of being excited about the potential revenue and how many happy customers that we can get done in a week because we were just killing it. But all it did is derail me for 2 or 3 weeks in hiring his replacement because I didn't get the ad going for a few days. I didn't get to answer all the resumes as fast as I could. What a dope, So that's what Jay was just calling me going, what are you hoping to accomplish by going out there and doing calls? Now, in the moment, again, in the weeds, I'm like thinking I'm the hero. Look, I'm running a company and I'm trying to hire a replacement and I'm doing the calls. But I was just doing all of that in a very mediocre way in that couple week period because I wasn't invested in where I needed to be. Delegation.
And there you have it. If you are in the wrong seat doing the wrong thing, Doug trying to run service calls right now is like a $5 task. I mean, he is. Listen, you are a below minimum wage employee at that point because you're not going to be doing that well. Right. That is not your skill set, right? Where a CSR is worth much.
Wait a minute. What? Why do I keep hearing this theme? I'm still a good tech, Zach. You and I, we could. You might beat me, but I'm still a good. Are you calling me old? Is that what you're doing right now?
No, I'm saying you and I should not be on the road in trucks servicing customers. It's just not. We've learned what our skill sets are. We've learned what we are naturally gifted at. Well, there you go. But it helped remind how much fun tech life is.
Yeah. It showed me how easy it was, Paul. Just kidding, Paul. Just kidding.
No, and that's the danger in trying to take those tasks back because then it derails you. That is the real danger in that, right? you heard that like Doug would have been better served had he gotten the resume out, gotten an employee hired, got him onboarded much faster. But instead he's like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the hero and I can.
Yeah.
And that's the danger of jumping outside of your skill set. And that's where delegation is important. I'm going to go to the other side of this. And this might be, we might have to flip the hats that we're wearing right now, Doug. But let's think from the tech perspective, or the CSR or the office manager who is not being delegated to. They see tasks that their supervisor, the owner of the company, whatever is doing that they shouldn't be doing. What's the right way to handle that one?
What you mean when the owner is not relinquishing to the people they hire?
Yeah, I mean, so let's look at this person. So say the office manager, she's really gifted at like you shared that you delegated out the unhappy customer.
Yeah.
So say your office manager noticed that. Like, why is Doug answering all these calls? I could handle this. Like I have the PM on the front lines and I could absolutely handle this. Yeah. How should she approach you to go, Doug, like, why? Like, I can do this. I got this. Let me help. What's the best way for that?
You know what? I think part of it is multiple ways you have to do this all the time. I think you better be having regular meetings, scheduled meetings with your people and talk about what's being done, because in a meeting space, you kind of you make sure they know this is the place to talk about. Gosh, Saul, just going right with the old belt-driven belt, man.
In fairness,
why is there truth to this too?
I had a set of avocado green washer, the Maytag washer and dryer growing up. And anyway,
yeah.
Sorry to sidetrack that one. We were going
somewhere
good.
So I think you got to have meetings with the intention to honestly be able to openly dialogue. If I was not able to openly dialogue with Jay, the owner, about what the mission is, what the tasks are, if I felt like he was unapproachable, then we wouldn't be where we're at today. And so I have to mirror that with the rest. Now, in the moment, in the gist of things, if I were to take away something and do something on behalf of my office manager or service manager and I step on their toes, in a busy day, that might be hard to navigate and talk about. So I think you got to have regular one-to-one meetings with your leaders and then a team meeting from time to time as well to say, how's it been going? How do you feel? Am I empowering you? Am I encouraging you? Am I stifling you? Am I getting in the way? And then listen, shut up and listen. So that's the way to do that, I think.
Don't do it Monday morning when everything's a train wreck.
No.
Or Friday afternoon, because that's going to be a train wreck too.
Oh, you want a tip about that? Never say have a great weekend to the employees that you have scheduled to work on Saturday on a Friday. Never ask them have a good weekend or tell them have a good weekend. Check your Saturday schedule first and only say that to those who are scheduled off on Saturday so that you don't rub it in. That's the pressure of being in charge, Zach.
And don't tell on-call employees to have a good because it's not going to be a good evening. It's just that's like
because you're gonna Murphy's Law. The phone will ring.
The nature of that one. I've spent 15 years on call. No, I love that. I love having the one-to-one meetings. I think that is so important to begin to build that. And what that does is that creates some personal responsibility. That shows that there is an open line of communication. So if you're a tech, a CSR, and it just feels like there's tasks that you could probably delegate and the meetings aren't happening or things aren't happening, schedule that. Have an open conversation. Don't go at it defensively, or in an attacking manner, but just really open conversation and see where that heads to. One of the struggles that I've had in my current position is knowing that there's things that I have to delegate and convincing Matt that stop making me do this task. Let's find someone to fill this role because it's just not what I should be doing. I.e. Project Pat coming in to handle sales. There we go. Great.
Yep.
And also figuring out, like, for him, dude, you shouldn't be doing that task. Like, that's a task that I should be doing. Like, you should be doing something else. And this is a task that someone else should be doing. Like, you need to delegate that away as well. And so finding that balance again between what you hold on to and what you pass off. And what it does is it allows your team to elevate. It allows them to have a sense of accomplishment. Do you feel more accomplished once Jay empowered you to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing?
Yeah. Oh, it's an addiction. It's a beautiful thing. Like you can listen to Scott earlier in his comments talking about, you can see he's proud that his people are empowered to make decisions and to solve problems and to make things flow well. That's a sign of a good leader right there. And, so for us, we have to get excited about the opportunities that we're creating to make great leaders. As a matter of fact, I think as a company, our plan should be a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year goal. Welcome back.
That's so weird.
Our goal should be, as a company, not only your first off, I realized that action doesn't really have KPI numbers as a company. I know what we've been doing. I know where we're striving to be, but measuring and evaluating our effectiveness as a company isn't there. The roles are, but not the actual company, right? So to me, one of the KPI numbers would be each year, how much further along have we grown up potential new leaders? Does our company have paths of growth? So, like a guy like Scott is investing in people, they're going to be stretching and growing with this empowerment. They need a place to be. They may not, some of these guys might love that part where they're problem solvers, where they're goal setters, and they may not want to be a tech for the next 15 years. So is Scott ready? Does he have a place for them in the company to hop into, because you've been training and coaching them to be great leaders? So things like that to think about.
This is like a whole nother episode. Can you go over delegating to the wrong people? What are some things to look for?
I wonder if it really is delegating. So like when we pick the wrong person and we kind of know it in our heart, are we just like desperate and just so overworked that we're willing to accept mediocrity? Or do we think that we find the wrong person? It's hard to find the right person. Where do you land on that, Zach? Do you think that most of us as owners out there, and of course there's only 6 of us that listen and watch here, but in the Appliance Alliance community, we've got every gamut. We've got one man 40 years, one man 2 years, 5 man, 20 man, 30 years in it, 2 years in it, just amazing groups of people. How often, what is that percentage or ratio? Do we think we hired the wrong person or we delegate the wrong task because we're overloaded? And how often do we think it is because we just picked the wrong person and it's really hard to find the right person?
I would say that's a pretty high percentage. There's a lot of people, especially in a it's so still weird to say the post-COVID world. It's hard to attract the right employees. But I think that starts with one of the things that we've said all along. You have to know who you are as a company in order to then go out and hire and retain team members. And so I think it starts with that internal look, like looking at yourself and then hiring the right people for the right seat. So, Scott says it. Yeah. Just finding someone to work is a challenge these days. But on the other side of, so my experience, like I put up on LinkedIn, hey, looking for a flooring specialist, and I broke it down and kind of shared who we were as the floor for you. And 2 hours later, Project Pat shows up in the inbox, is like, hey, that's what I'm looking for. And we interviewed, and, I got the right vibe off of him. Like, okay, like he's in alignment with our core values, like he has this determination and this drive to be this person, right? And maybe that's a unicorn. I don't know. Matt keeps telling me that I have a horseshoe up my rear end because like that shouldn't be possible to happen. But I think if you clearly define who you are, it's easier to hire the right person for the right spot. What I will say is when you're running around with your hair on fire and you're trying to delegate out, and maybe there's two of you in the company, and maybe this is what Saul's talking about, like I shouldn't be the person answering the phone. Maybe that should be Matt answering the phone if we're trying to delegate that out in a different direction. And so if you do that, I think it goes back to what we said at the very beginning of the episode. Be open, be consciously curious, be willing to go, you know what? This is influx and I wasn't right and I didn't do this the right way. Like take the ego out of it. Like take that I'm always right. And like, oh, well, that didn't work. Let's try this again.
That's right.
And I think that falls really in line with Dean's. It's us until it's not.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. So if we keep someone in the wrong spot that we've delegated the job out to 6 months longer than they should have been there, it's our fault. 100%. If it took that long because we didn't know, it's our fault. And so so you and I are in a spot where we're hiring people and trying to get them in the right place. Are you prepared compared to, say, when you were in the appliance business? I'm sure you learned so much from then to now. It's a fresh new start in a cool way. Do you have a exit strategy for the position that Matt is coming into? Do you have like a sort of an understanding of how long each part of the job should take and how many red flags pop up before you say, I think this isn't going to work out? Or is it mostly on intuition for you, Zach?
Right now it's on intuition because I'm still trying to learn like what the red flags are. Yeah. And so I say I'm wrong a lot, probably a lot more than I've ever said in my entire life. Like,
right.
Yeah. I wasn't right there. Sorry.
Right.
Just eat a lot of crow right now. Because it is learning the red flags where it will be my fault. Like, and where it's kind of like almost unforgivable is that if I don't document what those red flags are.
Sure.
Right, it's my job as a leader within the company to document what those red flags are and to begin to improve the process. So while process doesn't have to be perfect, like I said, I'll shoot it out there with 50% and hey, let's fix this along the way. It's my job to find the red flag, to find those guardrails, those boundaries, and put the markers in place to say that shouldn't be, and that happens in delegation. It is harder. I will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 man running around hair on fire, trying to figure out where to put stuff. It is a lot easier to make the mistakes in that position. And so I've learned from those mistakes now coming back into that same kind of position.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's neat.
Chapter 2 or chapter 6 or whatever it is.
I've lost track. The book's on fire in the corner somewhere. But it is fun. So I don't think, you might delegate to the wrong person, but it's your job as a leader, whether it's a manager, owner, whatever, to go, let's try this again. I need a redo.
You have to have a long game here, especially if you know that there's a good chance this isn't going to work out. You've got to have the pipeline running, and even if I've done this before, apologize to someone that I think I'm setting them up for failure and this might not work out, but let's try it. And again, have things in the works, because all your employees have to wait for you to transition the next salesman in, or whatever. And they have to deal with that. And now maybe in your case, you can't have salesmen growing in the pipeline because you don't have the business quite yet. You don't need 6 salesmen. But the rest of your staff are going to have to deal with the repercussions if Matt doesn't work out. And that's not your fault, and it's not anyone's fault, but it is a reality. And so for you being a stressed out guy, getting your hopes up and putting time into a guy and it doesn't work out, you're already discouraged enough to have employees complaining to you that they're like, oh, now look at the those thoughts pop in our head like, dude, I pay you. Just shut up and go do your job. Like those are how you might feel, but what they have to deal with is a reality, and you're ultimately responsible, So.
And it doesn't mean that someone should leave the company either. That was the other piece that I wanted to address, because we've kind of addressed that, like, you're not a right fit for the company. You need to go, and it's on me for not recognizing that soon enough. Whatever. You could just have someone in the wrong seat within the company. You could have delegated something. Say I delegated to the owner, Matt, a finance, right? Like, I would not delegate finance to him because he doesn't have the skill set. Do I want him to have the big picture of finance? Heck yeah. I mean, he needs to kind of like know where the money's coming in and going. But do I want him to try and do the taxes and reconcile the POs? And no, like, so if I delegated that to him, yes, I need him in the company, but no, I don't need him doing accounting, right? Like, that's a wrong delegation.
Yep.
Hey, let's make a shift here. I was wrong. let's pivot. Be willing to pivot within the company, and that can be a really good thing. Going through this now. I fired a guy, and the guy in the pipeline was not entirely ready, but he's out on a truck now. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to go.
And the rest of the guys are encouraged because, it could have been that you had no one in the pipeline. So it's great. What is that?
People don't realize training someone, time and money spent on someone that ends up not working out. So like Doug says, don't do it out of desperation. Yeah. And I think that goes back to what I said, like, clearly define who you are as a company. If you're not clearly defined, then you are going to do things out of desperation more often than not. If you're running around hair on fire, you're wearing 17 hats when you shouldn't be wearing 17 hats, you're going to do things out of desperation. So begin to set those boundaries and guidelines.
And something, it's great to have Saul on here because Saul is an above average. He's a high quality customer service person in the vendor industry, right? With Marcone.
He's not your typical salesman.
No.
On the other day.
No, but I have done this, and this is something that you should think about: is delegating to other delegate to your vendors. Hey, I'm in transition right now, and I don't have a parts guy, and I'm trying to wear multiple hats. Hey, Saul, what can you do for me? Is there anything that Marcone or you can do to help me? And I've got an incredible rep from Encompass that's amazing, and so those people you can delegate potentially to them as well in transition. So not just your employees, but even you, Saul, can help.
Yeah, we have a fantastic sales rep for one of our flooring vendors, and I reached out to him the other day and said, hey, I know I can't be the only one asking this question. Can you, there's nothing on your website. There's nothing in documentation about this. Can you find this answer? And I delegated it off to him. I didn't get an answer yet, but I have another direction ahead. Someone else that I can delegate the question to and go, hey, how does this work? Because I can't be the only person trying to do this. HR tasks, office tasks, there's a lot of things that can be delegated away, especially if you're a small business. And
it's affordable, Zach.
That's what I was going to say. This is the last thing.
You can get that pretty cheap. You just have to be willing to acknowledge what it will save time for you, and it's worth every bit of the dollar.
And that is the ticket, is realizing, and this is what I wanted to finish up with. When you're a 1 and 2 man operation, it can feel like that's a lot of money heading out the door. But what you don't realize is that is money well spent, because if you are doing that task, you're actually losing more money. You're actually in a negative balance doing those tasks instead of spending the money to delegate it out and have it done right. You are asking for trouble if you are trying to do it yourself instead of delegating that out. So
If you want to go from 2 to 5 or to 6 and you're running around
fastest
with your
way.
head cut off, you're never going to be able to invest that time. So yeah, investing and having the HR and payroll service, you're going to need it anyway when you get to 5 or 6. Might as well get there, So that I love that. That's a good point.
All right, guys, that's what we got for today. Thanks for tuning in. I know it was a little bit longer, and we didn't even cover everything. So maybe we'll come back and visit this topic again, because I just feel like there's a ton in delegation that we can go over even more. So
I agree.
All right, guys, have a good day. We will see
Thank
you next time. Peace.